Hello there Internet, my name is Sarah, connoisseur of video games and urban legends with a great appreciation for villains and kaiju media. Recently, I have gotten a hold of the supposedly haunted Godzilla, Monster of Monsters cartridge, with the intent of figuring out whether the rumors about it are true or not. I have played the game a few times on emulators, but most of the information I got from the game came from me watching videos of it. For the sake of documentation, I will be using screenshots, since my screen recorder is not exactly in a usable condition right now. With that preamble out of the way, let us get right into it. Well, it seems we are off to a good start, especially with the different title screen. I will have to admit that is some impressive pixel art of the Showa-era-esque King Ghidorah, although the title itself could use a little work, and maybe a more creative moniker, since that was the name of his debut film with the first word moved to the end. Other than that, not much has changed, same title music, same menu afterwards, but rather than starting on Earth like I expected, I was taken to an entirely new world. Ripple. The first thing I noticed once Ripple's board faded in was the monster I was playing as. It wasn't Godzilla or Mothra, but the first boss of the original game, Ghidorah. This didn't really instill much confidence in me, since the only attack that Ghidorah had was a tentacle smack, but all that did was annoy those unlucky enough to get him into the corner by it. The next thing I noticed were the monsters opposing me, Gabara and Dagora. Gabara's board sprite looked rough, while Dagora's icon looked like somebody used one of the base game's assets and recolored it. Talk about laziness. The board itself looked like a sideways teardrop. It also reminded me of Uranus's board for some reason, but with a somewhat diverse level selection. Speaking of which, the levels are Beach, River, Cascade, Sunken Ruins, and Abyssal Cove. I do not know why that one has a recolored base icon, but I assume it has the same function. The music, meanwhile, could best be described as a sorrowful tune, backed by soft percussion, ocean sounds and occasional beeping, but nothing that sounded possible on the NES. When I gathered up the courage to start, I moved Ghidorah to one of the beach levels. Beach was exactly what I expected, minus the deep blue moon at the top of the screen. The music sounded like a slow, energetic, tropical piece. It was out of place in a supposedly haunted game, not that I am complaining. When I looked at the UI, I noticed the score was missing, a bit of a shame, but it wasn't that important. Ghidorah mainly moved by jumping around, which was kind of annoying, but after playing around for a bit, his moveset more than made up for how gimmicky his movement options were. Pressing the A button caused Ghidorah to slap something with one of his tentacles, but this time, it actually did damage. The B button caused Ghidorah to fire an ink projectile at the cost of some power. Pressing start would cause Ghidorah to flash green and heal a portion of any health he lost for 3 bars in the power meter. As for the level itself, the only obstacles were these fan-like enemies that occasionally shoot red projectiles, but they were easy to deal with, especially when the ink attacked. The level was pretty boring, so I only took 2 screenshots of it. Once the level was over, Gabara took advantage of the small board size and fought Ghidorah. Gabara was a tricky opponent, is what I would say, if Ghidorah's tentacle smacking did not turn his fight into a complete and utter joke. Gabara mainly attacked from a distance with electricity. The music that played during the fight was Ghidorah's, which made sense, since I was able to close the distance and pin Gabara to the right side of the screen, meaning that by technicality, Ghidorah was the boss instead of Gabara. Once I had made short work of Gabara, I moved Ghidorah to one of the river icons. River was not much harder than beach, but was certainly more annoying with the water constantly pushing Ghidorah back. The music for this level was a synth melody with strange vocals. The obstacles this time were piles of rocks that scattered whenever I attacked them and holes in the ground. I did not want to find out what would happen if I fell into one. As for enemies, the only ones in this level were weird long-legged orbs with eyes on both the front and back of their head. Aside from leveling up, River was not really a noteworthy experience until the end of the stage. When I got to the end of the level, there was a big pile of rocks blocking my way, and I definitely could not jump over it. Guess I will have to chip away at it one tentacle smack at a time. Oh, never mind then. Well, thank you both Ganymede and Camel Bess, even if one of you did not help that much. Anyways, after completing the level, Dagora decided to approach and attack Jazora. Sometimes a small board can be really annoying. Dagora's music was not a pre-existing boss theme from the original game, but rather, a blood-pumping tune with emphasis on drums. And like Dagora, being able to smack Dagora with a tentacle was much harder, which meant pinning that slippery bastard to a corner quickly proved to be a futile effort. Dagora mainly attacked by shooting lightning out of its tentacles. Although the attack did not do much damage on its own, it tends to linger for a bit, dealing more damage than you might think. Thankfully, the electricity attack used a lot of power, often leaving Dagora sitting duck. A few well-aimed ink projectiles that are not visible in this screenshot due to blending in with the background helped chip away at Dagora's health. When the battle timer ran out, I decided to try out Cascade before resuming my battle with Dagora. Cascade looked like an aqueduct in front of a waterfall, but thanks to the sky and the floor here being the same size, navigating this level proved to be a bit harder than usual. The music was a complex melody that sounded a bit waterfall-ish, for lack of a better word. The enemies in this stage were green variations of the clan enemy from Beach, as well as a background-dwelling variant of the orbs from River. I managed to get a screenshot with both of them on screen. Once I had completed the level, I resumed my fight with Dagora. I made quite a bit of progress, but once I got Dagora to half health, it used an incredibly irritating attack. Dagora would summon 3 cells and hide in the upper right corner of the arena until I destroyed the cells, which would become regular Dagora enemies from the original game, if left alone. Thankfully, Dagora only had the opportunity to do this once, since I was able to defeat it shortly afterwards. Sweet. It seems I leveled up. I knew that trip to Cascade would pay off. Anyways, after I defeated Dagora, rather than being taken back to the board, well, I will let the screenshot speak for itself. Despite being in the same environment as Beach, there was no music, no UI, just a watery pillar in front of me. I shot at the pillar with an ink projectile and then this happened. After that admittedly confusing scene, the game took me back to the board. I had quite a few questions, but I knew that they would only be answerable in the long term, so I decided to check out Sunken Ruins before finishing the world by heading to Abyssal Cove. Sunken Ruins was much longer than the previous levels. The music was a slow, sorrowful yet strange orchestral melody with some synths thrown into the mix. The level seemed to take place at night, as evident by the dark background. I hopped around for a minute, but I did not find anything, no obstacles, no enemies, nothing. Just me and a greenish blue moon. Eventually, I came across a dead end. There was not anywhere else to go, so I took a leap of faith and jumped into the water, hoping for the best. To my surprise, the level continued underwater, but with a different color palette for Jazora. As I expected, moving around underwater felt like playing the game with low gravity. One neat little thing that happened, as demonstrated by this screenshot, was that whenever you went left, your monster's sprite actually flipped, so that it would actually look like the cage you were playing, as was heading to the left. It was a nice detail, but back to the level itself. The first enemies I encountered were these purple starfish things that usually travel in groups of 5. They were annoying to deal with. After going through what can best be described as an underwater labyrinth, I made my way back onto dry land, encountering another enemy in this level, a cube suspended on a pole that fired arrows. They were easy to deal with, since I could jump over their projectiles, but I encountered at least 7 of them, before I made it to the end of the level. Speaking of which, when I was about to exit the level, I encountered this strange creature. It wasn't trying to attack me, so I assumed it was friendly. Well, that's certainly a sobering way to end a level. When I entered Abyssal Cove, the first thing I noticed was an empty boss UI replacing the sky, but there's no way that could possibly be right, not unless something powerful awaited me. The music started out with a bit of beeping, before the minimalistic melody kicked in at around 10 seconds. Another thing I noticed was that the level started underwater, which was somewhat irritating, but not really the end of the world. The starfish from sunken ruins returned with a deeper shade of purple and a pinkish red eye. They were more annoying than their cousins, because not only was it hard to see them against a black background, they had absolutely no right to be as fast as they were. It was about 2 minutes into the stage before I encountered another enemy type, a green shark with arms, but they usually ignored me unless I attacked them. I also saw a silhouette of something in the background. I only saw it because of the bioluminescent particles that surrounded it. I also leveled up before exiting the water, so that's good, especially for what happened next. After taking what looked like a staircase made of the ground tiles out of the water, I briefly lost control of Godzilla, so I assumed it was a cutscene. The music changed into a suspicious, minimalistic melody, as Godzilla did those same awkward hops he does whenever he entered a stage or boss fight before stopping at the position seen in the screenshot here. As the screen began shaking, I noticed that the stats and name of a new enemy began fading in slowly. Aquidus did not sound like a name for a kaiju, let alone a kaiju made by Toho. When Aquidus emerged from the water, I noticed he had no eyes and a shark's skull for a face, while the aquatic beast's arms kind of reminded me of something from an SNES or Sega Genesis game. Once the screen stopped shaking, Aquidus roared at me, which sounded like an 8-bit version of a dragon's roar, with the music briefly going quiet around this time. Once his power and light bars built up, the music changed into a fast and intense song, almost sounding like an adrenaline rush in boss music form. Aquidus mainly attacked by slamming his arms onto the ground and exhaling bioluminescent smog. The former often caused rocks to fall, while the latter poisoned Godzilla, and occasionally, Aquidus would lunge forward, hoping that the shark's mouth hit something. All of these attacks hit like a truck. Even with the buffs Godzilla received, I was stuck with bar none, the weakest monster in the base game, facing an opponent that was presumably bigger than Godzilla, with attacks that could very well decimate what's left of my life meter. If I was unlucky, how was I able to win? That's when Godzilla's healing ability really came in handy. Although the healing consumed a lot of energy, it was more than worth it, especially since a combination of this ability and luck was what saved my playthrough from ending on the first world. But Aquidus had one last trick up his non-existent sleeve once I completely depleted his life meter. Rather than sink to the bottom of the screen while exploding, Aquidus lunged at me. While I was taken by surprise and lost a bit of life, the attack seemed to hurt Aquidus more than Godzilla. Well, I think that's enough of the game for tonight. I have quite a few questions that I probably will not receive the answer to yet, but it's getting late where I am. Do not worry, I will continue the game tomorrow, but the exhaustion from today's session is getting to me, so do not expect much from me until the next day. Until then, the next world is going to have to wait.